Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be breaking down the first trailer for Fast and Furious 9. That is due to come out later this year. Um, and there was there was a few interesting little questions that were going into this that did get answered in the trailer. You know, stuff like who John Cena's character was, and what's kind of become of Han, the character of Han, who supposedly died off screen. I believe that was the reason why there was such a problem, is that he supposedly died off screen in between films. Um, but let's kind of just dive into this because this is the ninth entry in this franchise. Technically the 10th if you count Hobbs and Shaw, which was the spinoff from last year with The Rock and Jason Statham. Um, but they still see. This is the thing with the Fast and Furious franchise. They always kind of know what their fans want, and they give them that. And if it's not your thing, then it's not your thing. And I think that's something to admire about this franchise from a certain standpoint. Even though I personally don't really like it, I think it's kind of dumb. The first one was kind of okay, then everything after that kind of sucked, as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, some people really love those movies. And, you know, if you want to love the movie, you want to love the movie. You know, I don't. I think there are objective things that are bad about them, but there's also things that I could see people liking about them. It's not an irredeemable movie franchise like the 50 Shades franchise or something stupid like that. Um, but let's dive into the trailer. And first, we kind of catch up with Vin Diesel as the Dominic character, and then we also have Michelle Rodriguez returning as his wife. We see that they have a young child. I don't think they had a kid in previous film. I think that's a new development. So I would assume that this happens several years down the road from when we last left them off in the previous movie. But basically, they kind of go over some stuff, and we catch up with some of the other characters. You see Tyrese Gibson in the trailer. You see Ludacris. You see Han, obviously, at one point. A lot of these other characters that pop up. So we kind of go through the first part, and we're getting reintroduced to Dom, and now his life as a dad and stuff like that. And then after that, then we have this thing where he starts talking about how, because Vin Diesel does give a good monologue on parts of the trailer, is that basically his past has caught up with him, or what we perceive to be his past. Now again, this kind of seems like an 11th hour type of thing in terms of an aesthetic. Well, not an aesthetic, in terms of a character choice. But then we go into John Cena's character, and obviously, if you haven't seen the trailer, then this is probably going to be maybe this will be a spoiler. I don't even know. But John Cena is the main antagonist of the film, and he's also Dominic Santiago's brother. Actually, I can't remember his last name, Santiago, but Dom's brother. And this is kind of like when we get into soap opera territory, I feel like. Because this is like, you have a long lost brother who has returned. It's like, I'm not very familiar with the franchise. I would have to add, I know Dom was very close with his father because I remember the first film, or somewhat close with his father because I remember some of the stuff about that in the first film. But I can't remember if there was any mention of him having a brother. And this is, if there isn't, this is kind of one of those things. It's like Spock's brother. Again, it's like Spock's brother from Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. It's kind of one of those situations. And we don't really have any explanation for why he wants to kill Dom or why he has animosity towards him. There's another monologue by a different character where I think it's Charlize Theron. I could be wrong. Where she's talking about how John Cena's character always had to be bigger and better and badder than Dom. And basically it's kind of like, okay, so he wants to kill him because he has a rivalry with him. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm sure they'll give some kind of a reason in the actual film, and I'm glad they kind of didn't reveal that here, but again, it just seems a little cloudy. But then we go into a lot of action scenes. Now, I will say this about this trailer. It is a 4-minute long trailer. That's big for a trailer, especially a first one. And this is the thing, is that they did a decent job in not giving everything away in a very simple plotted story. they really only gave away the basics. A lot of the rest of it was action scenes. The only thing that I think can backfire on you from that perspective is if you show too much of the action and people know what's going to happen before it happens, because then it kind of ruins the action scenario. Um, but there is a little bit sprinkled here and there within those action scenes. There's kind of a funny little moment with Ludacris where this guy shows him a car. It's a Pontiac with like a rocket attached to it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's pretty sick, huh?" It's like, "No, no, it's not. That thing is death." And yeah, it's kind of funny, but then you see Tyrese Gibson in that vehicle later on, like going like through Mach 5 or something on the ground. Which again I think is a little ridiculous, but I understand that that's kind of what the series is now. It's not, you remember at the end of the first Fast and Furious when Dom goes off the jump with his car and he lands and the thing's like all fucked up and can barely drive. Yeah, they drive cars off of planes now, so any sense of realism went out the window years ago. So I come to expect stuff like that from this. I think that ultimately that is kind of it's there to show comedy elements, which again I feel like maybe it ruined a joke. I think that would have been something funnier maybe to leave in the film. So maybe that was showing a bit too much. And then you move on to the Han scene where he comes back, and they even have a little blurb in there that they have some text come up on the screen that says "Justice is coming," because of the Justice for Han movement, which is the Fast and Furious fans. I mentioned that earlier in the video. But it gave away enough. It gave a hook to the fans, and that's that's the thing I have to give credit to with the Fast and Furious franchise is that they know what their fans want, and they wanted the quote unquote justice for Han. So the studio gave them justice for Han, and that is very telling of how a studio handles a franchise, and I think that's why the Fast and Furious franchise has only gotten bigger and bigger over time. Is the fact that they are willing to listen to their fans and the fact that they are willing to make films that really cater to their main demographic and really kind of, anybody else that kind of falls in. Because those are the people that are going to be there for Fast and Furious, 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and however many of these damn things they make. And that goes back to something that other studios have done wrong in recent years, including Lucasfilm and various other ones. But I got to give them credit for that. I think they gave away a little bit too much in the trailer with some of the action scenes. I think they should have kept the Pontiac thing out. I think they should have removed some of the others, maybe a little bit of the other stuff in there, maybe shortened up the trailer, trimmed it up. I don't think that it needed to be 4 minutes long, but I appreciate the fact that it was. The only thing that's very questionable right now is what's going to happen with the second trailer, because I think they gave away enough in this trailer, but they almost gave away too much, and I feel like they can do that very easily with the second trailer, especially if they're not using a lot of the same footage. So that's kind of up in the air, but that's kind of one of those things that's gonna have to develop with time. And the other thing here too is that I think that as far as the trailer itself goes, it's fine, but the movie is going to be interesting because this is kind of the first one, I believe this is the first one, post Paul Walker. There's going to be a lot of kind of interesting things going on with that to see if they, obviously he wasn't a huge name, but he was a central point in the series. Basically, probably the second most important character behind Vin Diesel, I'd say. But it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of works out with this. They kind of sent him off the pasture in the last movie, but I'm just curious how they're going to fill that dynamic in. But I want to know what you guys think. As usual, I will link the trailer in the description below for anybody that wants to watch it. But I want to know what you think about the new trailer for Fast and Furious 9. Are you excited for it? Are you a fan of the series? Are you a fan of the early stuff but not the new stuff, or the new stuff but not the old stuff? Or do you not give a shit at all? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to know what you're thinking. Make sure to hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?